Rakak Sripad Devashis Maharaj ki jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhaktyasiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Bhargya ki jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Acharya Brinda ki jai. Harinama Sankirtan ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari. So we're broadcasting from the East London Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Math at 466 Green Street. We've now, during the current lockdown, due to various careful consideration, we've actually closed the temple here to the general public for the time being, and only those who have some actual service here, scheduled service here in the temple, are being given access. So we're trying to broadcast our Sunday talk, which is what this is. Every week we'll try and do that as much as possible, and any festival days. We're also, every Saturday, if you may know, we have a Zoom broadcast with the West London Temple and Srila Madhusudan Maharaj. He speaks on that day, so that's with him. And on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. we have a Zoom meeting with Bhakti Pavan Janardhan Maharaj every Wednesday as well. So you can always join us on those. And this is being broadcast on the East London Temple Facebook page, so you can join us. So we're continuing our discussion with of Upadeśāmṛta of Śrī Rupa Goswami Prabhu, and we've concluded, or I say concluded at the moment, the 11 verses. We've discussed the talk of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which he gave on at Sri Radha Kund, and now we're going to begin for the next few weeks the discussion of Sri Bhaktyaloka, which is in the contained within there. It's a small, it's actually quite big discussion about the 6 faults that destroy bhakti by Srila Vinod Thakur, and this has been published and included in the this printing of the Upadeśāmṛta. Upadeśāmṛta is very small; it's only 11 verses, and if you've seen, which I'm sure most of you have, the commentary by Srila A.T. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, a very small book. So when the translator Sripad Tyagi Maharaj was asking me to go through the proofs of this before it was published, and he'd been working on this for like 2 years, and I'm thinking, for such a small book, why is it taken so long? And then I saw that it was actually become a huge book, nearly 700 pages. Book, and the reason is because it contains so much. The commentaries of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and illumination by Srila Sridhar Maharaj, then also many other things, including this Bhaktyaloka by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And this is Bhakti Nasaka Sad Dosha, the 6 faults that destroy bhakti. So, this is from the, of course, the verse Atyaharah Prayasascha. So we can, and here Bhaktivinoda Thakur goes through each one of those faults separately, so we can have a discussion on those and see how the time looks if we move on to the next one. But we'll begin with Atyaharah. So, Srila Rupa Goswami in his Śrī Upadeśāmṛta has written this verse. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha jana shangas chalolyam cha sadbir bhaktir vinashyati. Discussing the deep meaning of this verse is extremely necessary. For those who take up the sadhana of pure bhakti, following the instructions in this verse is particularly essential, and for those who do not take care to follow these instructions, Hari Bhakti is extremely difficult to attain. To assist those who have a strong desire to attain pure bhakti, we are clearly writing out the purport of this verse. In this verse, 6 impediments are described: Atyahara, Prayasa, Prajalpa, Niyamagraha, Janasanga, and Lolya. We will discuss these 6 topics separately. In this short chapter, only the meaning of the term Atyahara will be discussed. Many people may think that the word Atyahara in this context simply refers to overeating. In actuality, this is not so. In the first verse of Śrī Upadeśāmṛta, it is written, Vacho vegam manasakroda vegam, jiva vegam, udarapashta vegam, etan vegam, yovishaheta dira, sarvam apiman pritivim shashishyat. A sober person who with perseverance, dharja, is able to tolerate the urges of speech, the mind, anger, the tongue, the belly, and the genitals, can instruct the entire world. In this regard, the urge of the tongue refers to the desire to taste foods, and the urge of the belly refers to the desire to overeat. If we understand the term Atyahara in the second verse of Śrī Upadeśāmṛta to mean overeating, then in this concise compilation of essential instructions, the fault of repetition would be present. Therefore, searching out another meaning of the term Atyahara given by the supremely profound Srila Rupa Goswami is the duty of all learned readers. Bhojan, eating, is the primary meaning of the word ahara, but the word bhojan also refers to perceiving objects through the 5 senses. There is perception or bhojan of 5 types of objects: form by the eyes, sound by the ears, smell by the nose, taste by the tongue, and softness and hardness, heat, cold, and so on by the skin. Such perception of material objects is unavoidable for an embodied jiva. Without perception of objects, the jiva cannot maintain their life. By giving up perception of objects entirely, the jiva would give up the body. Therefore, giving up material objects is a notion that can only be imagined. It can never actually be carried out. Bhagavan Sri Krishna instructed Sri Arjun as follows: Nahi kaschit kashanam api jato tistati akarmakrit. Karjatehi ashvasha karma sava prakritir jargunhai. Karmendriyani samyamya ya aste manasa smaran. Indriyatan vimudatma mityachara sa uchyate. This is from the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verses 5 and 6. No one can remain for even a moment without performing action. Everyone is forced to perform action by the modes born of material nature. One who restrains the senses of action, but with the mind dwells on the sense objects, is self-deluded and called a charlatan. Since the body cannot be maintained without action, action to sustain one's life must be performed. If, however, such action is performed with aversion to Bhagavan, then one loses one's humanity and animality ensues. Therefore, only when one can make all of one's bodily actions favorable to Bhagavad Bhakti can one engage in Bhakti Yoga. Bhagavan, moreover, has said in Sri Gita, Nati asinatas tu yoga stito chatkantam anasnataha nachati swapna shilasya jagrato naiva charjuna Juktara jivarasya jukta chestasya karmasu Jukta swapnava bodhasya yoga bhavati dukkha Naiva kinchit karomiti jukta manyata tatvavit Pasyan srinvan sparshanam jigran asnan gachan swapan shwashan Pralapan Vishrijin Grinan Unmisam Nimishan Api Indriyani Driyateshu Vartan Iti Dharayan. O Arjun, yoga is not possible for one who overeats, does not eat at all, oversleeps, or remains awake excessively. For one of regulated eating and recreation, regulated endeavor in action, and regulated sleep and wakefulness, yoga becomes a destroyer of suffering. A realized yogi thinks, I do not eat anything, considering, even while seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, evacuating, grasping and opening and closing the eyes, it is just the senses that are engaging with the sense objects. By overeating, undereating, oversleeping, or undersleeping, one cannot perform yoga. A person who is regulated in eating, regulated in endeavor, regulated in sleep, and regulated in wakefulness achieves success in yoga. Their approach is this. My senses are moving amongst the sense objects, but I, the pure Atma, do not do any of this. With this mentality, they will not partake of the sense objects. Although these instructions show the method of engagement mainly for jnanis, their purport can still be favorable to bhakti. If one focuses on the instruction of surrender, sharanagati, in the ultimate verse of Sri Gita, accepts all the objects of the senses as the mercy or prasadam of Bhagavan, rejects the processes of karma and jnana, and engages in practice, one will achieve success in pure bhakti yoga. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami has said in his Śrī Bhaktyarasamrita Sindhu, Anasaktasya vishayan jartaham apayunjata nirbandha krishna sambande juktam vairagyam uchyate prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandani vastuna mumukshubhi parityajo vairagyam falgu katyate. The renunciation of those who both remain detached from the objects of the senses and utilize them as appropriate in their practice of bhakti, and from which earnestness for relation with Krishna develops, is said to be proper renunciation or jukta vairagya. The rejection of objects related to Hari by seekers of liberation who consider them merely mundane is known as falgu vairagya or useless renunciation. Srila Rupa Goswami has taught the purport of these two verses again in Śrī Upadeśāmṛta with the term Atyaharah tyag. The meaning is that Atyaharah occurs when one engages with the sense objects, considering them objects of enjoyment. If sense objects are accepted as the mercy or prasadam of Bhagavan in a manner favorable to bhakti as is necessary, then that is not Atyaharah. If one accepts with simplicity the sense objects as Bhagavan's mercy, then one will eat properly at a bhakti festival and thereby easily practice proper renunciation or Jukta Vairagya. Sriman Mahaprabhu's instruction is, accept the sense objects with detachment and chant Krishna's name. Do not endeavor for fancy foods, clothes, and so on. Accept pure Bhagavat Prasadam, which is obtained with little difficulty. This is the prescription for devotees to maintain their lives. Accumulate only what is necessary. There will be no auspicious result by accumulating more or less. If a sadhaka accumulates or collects in excess, they will become captivated by attachment and fail to achieve the highest attainment of paramartha. If they do not accumulate things adequately, however, their body, their means of bhajan will not be maintained. The purport of the instruction in the first verse, to tolerate the urges of the tongue and the belly, is this. Ordinary people naturally become disturbed by hunger and the desire to partake of fine tastes. They are thus extremely eager and anxious to eat the foods that they have acquired. This is a natural urge. When this urge arises, one should subdue it with the cultivation of bhakti. The instruction in the second verse, to give up Atyaharah, is a fixed rule for bhakti sadhakas. The first is conditional and the second is fixed. There is another point to be made on this subject. In accord with the distinction between householders and renunciates, there are two types of application for all these instructions. Householders can collect things to maintain their families, and they can spend wealth collected and earned according to the laws of Dharma to serve Bhagavan, serve the devotees, maintain their family, honor guests, and sustain their own lives. Although householders have the right to collect and earn, if they endeavor to collect more than necessary, then that will be an obstacle to their bhakti sadhana and to receive Krishna's mercy. Such excessive collection and such excessive earnings are Atyaharah. Of this there is no doubt. Renunciant sadhakas should not collect anything at all. If they are not satisfied with the alms they receive each day, then they are at fault for Atyaharah. If they receive fine items and eat more than necessary, then they are again at fault for Atyaharah. Therefore, when householder and renunciant sadhaka Vaishnavas observe such understanding, give up Atyaharah and engage in Krishna's service, then they will attain Krishna's mercy. So, Atyaharah. In Srila Prabhupada's commentary, he says Atyaharah, overeating and over-endeavoring for mundane things which are difficult to obtain. And that kind of sums it up really, the meaning of Atyaharah. And actually this, still today I usually carry that Upadeśāmṛta in my bag because I consider it to be one of the most essential books for the Vaishnavas. This copy is very big, it's not so easy to carry in your pocket or in your bag, but Srila Prabhupada's commentary is very small, very thin, and you can just pop it in your bag or in your coat pocket, and if you've got a spare 5 minutes while you're traveling or doing something, it's very good to read and very instructive. So this Atyaharah is the first of the 6 things which destroy bhakti, and that means overeating and over-endeavoring for mundane things which are difficult to obtain. So here, Srila Vinod Thakur says, especially referring to householders, that you can collect things and earn for the upkeep of your family for the service of Bhagavan, the service of your deity, the service of the temple, the service of the Vaishnavas, and for to honor guests, and so on. So this is allowable for householder devotees, but only to the extent that it is necessary, what is appropriate. So we don't need to be endeavoring to become millionaires. Sometimes devotees think that this is what we should do, especially householder devotees. I'll try some scheme, some get-rich scheme, which usually actually almost always never work. Because if there were get-rich schemes that worked, then everybody would be doing it, wouldn't they? But they think, if I become rich, then I can use my wealth in Krishna's service. And of course, no doubt that's a noble objective. But if you spend all your time endeavoring for wealth, you usually find that is so time-consuming. You have no time for engaging in bhakti. So time is very valuable to us. And if we use all of our time for endeavoring for wealth, generally we will find that we don't attain that wealth. And even if we do attain that wealth, that once we have that wealth, we're very attached to it and we don't want to easily give it up, or even in effect use it for Krishna's service. Or we think that if we do use it in Krishna's service, that we are ourselves blessing the temple, or blessing our guru, or blessing the Vaishnava with our wealth. So the pursuit of wealth over and above that which is necessary for us is actually against devotion. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 4 places of Kali are given there as animal slaughter and meat eating, gambling or cheating others, and illicit sexual relationships, and what's the other one? Intoxication. Taking intoxication. So, but there is actually a 5th principle, or a 5th place of Kali, and that is called Jata Rupam. And Jata Rupam means where gold is hoarded, or in other words, where excessive wealth is being maintained or being accumulated. Excessive wealth, because with excessive wealth, that gives us facility to engage in all the other things. So it is better to utilize what we have today in Krishna's service and live simply. This advice we heard from Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Live simply, and what you have in your hand today, try to utilize that in Krishna's service. And you will be the beneficiary of that. You will benefit for doing that. Whereas if you're always spending your time searching for more and more and more, to accumulate more and more and more, whatever your ambition may be, to utilize that for Krishna's service, it is highly diverting from what we have, the time that we have with us. We don't know, actually. You can walk out of your door and get knocked over by a bus and it's all over. And in any moment, death can be waiting for us just around the corner. And if we have not fulfilled our goal of becoming rich, then we have to start all over again. But Krishna says in the Gita that whatever small endeavor we carry out in his service or in search for him, that is never lost or diminished. And wherever we are, we will find that we can take that up again where we left off. Not so with our material endeavors. So, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said, whatever is coming to you according to your karma, that's going to come anyway. So there's nothing you can do that will stop that happening. And there's nothing you can do to make it happen. It's already preordained, so to say. How it comes to us, we may be able to determine that to some small degree, but our loss and gain in this life is already it's already written. So Saraswati Thakur's advice is, don't spend your time trying to make it happen or trying to prevent it from happening. It's going to happen. Then just utilize your time for cultivation of Krishna Bhakti. Then you'll, whether you become wealthy or whether you become impoverished, it doesn't matter, because the real wealth is in Krishna Bhakti. What we have in our hand today, let us use that in Krishna's service. And we see that although Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he explains that householders, they can collect and earn for the maintenance of their family, for the service of the Vaishnavas and so on. This is strictly forbidden for renunciates, those who are following the path of renunciation, the sannyasis and so on. They're not allowed to collect things. They are not allowed to amass wealth, even for the service of Krishna. It is forbidden, and they should just rely on whatever comes in their lap, day to day. That is, Guru Maharaj was very careful about that. Of course, if you're in charge of a temple and many other things in a mission, then wealth may come to you, but you should not consider that to be yours. We should accept that with detachment and consider it to be for the service of Lord Krishna. We heard that Srila Prabhupada A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, when he was in California, in the newspaper, there was an article about Swami Satchidananda, who was also living in California at that time. While he lived, he had an ashram there. And there was an article on the front page of the newspaper showing somebody offering him like a suitcase with like hundreds or thousands of dollars in it. And he's like turning away from it, shunning it. And Srila Prabhupada, when he saw this article, he said, you can make another article and you can take a photograph of me and somebody offering me a suitcase of money, and I'm saying, yes, 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 give it, give it. He said, because whatever will come, I will use that in Krishna's service. And I heard he said something to the effect that if you give me $1 million in the morning, by the evening, I will have spent it for Krishna's service. So this is Yukta Vairagya. Yukta Vairagya means the proper application of everything. So the things that we come into contact with our senses, if we can engage them in the service of Krishna, then they are connected with Krishna, and that is not considered to be Atyaharah. But to endeavor for those things separately from the service of Krishna and his devotees will always be Atyaharah, will always be over-endeavoring. And that will be one of the 6 things that destroys bhakti. So we should be very aware of that, Atyaharah. And the second, prayasa. So the next chapter in this little book is of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, prayasa, so we can discuss that. If one does not give up prayasa, bhakti will not awaken. The term prayasa means endeavor or exertion. Nothing other than pure bhakti to Bhagavan can be called the highest attainment or the paramartha. Bhakti cannot be explained by any characteristics other than surrender, sharanagati, sharanapati, and subservience, anugatya, to Bhagavan's feet. Surrender and subservience are the jiva's inherent eternal dharma. Bhakti, therefore, is the jiva's characteristic propensity and natural dharma. There is no necessity of prayasa or endeavor within one's natural dharma. Still, in the conditioned state, there is to some extent the need for prayasa in the jiva's cultivation of the faculty of bhakti. Apart from this general prayasa, every form of prayasa that can be seen is unfavorable to bhakti. In general, there are two types of prayasa, jnana prayasa and karma prayasa. The result of jnana prayasa is the sense of exclusive oneness, or kevala advaita. This is also called sayuja, or brahma nivarna. Jnana prayasa is antithetical to the highest attainment, or paramartha. This has been discussed as such in the Vedic scriptures. Nayana atma pravachanena labhyo, na medaya na bahuna shrutena, yami vaisha brinute tena labhyas, tasyaisa atma bibrinute tanum swam. This is from the Mundaka Upanishad. The Atma is not attained by reasoning, intelligence, or extensive learning. He is attained by those whom he chooses. To them, the Atma reveals his own form. In this case, the Atma has been given with a capital A. Now that means not the individual Atma, but the super soul, or the supreme person, the supreme Atma. Or here he explains that. Atma means the soul or the super soul. The Atma cannot be attained by reasoning, intelligence, or the prayasa of extensive learning. The Atma reveals his own true nature to those who accept him as their master. Therefore, bhakti alone is the one and only cause of attaining Sri Bhagavan's feet. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma says to Sri Krishna, Jnane prayasam udapasya namanta eva, jivanti san mukaritam bhavadiya bhartam. Stane stita shruti gatam tanuvan manobhir, jay prayaso jita jitopi asitais trilokyam. O unconquerable one, you are conquered within these three worlds by those who give up endeavor on the path of Gyan. Remain in the association of the sadhus. Listen to narrations about you from the mouths of the sadhus, and take shelter of the path of bhakti with their body, mind, and words. To clarify the result of Jnana Prayasa, Brahma says, Shreya Sritim Bhaktim Udasya Te Vibhu, Klishyanti Ye Kaivala Bodha Labhad Labdhyaye, Tesham Aso Klesha, Eva Shishyate, Nanyadjata Shtula, Tusavaka Agatinam. O Lord, Bhakti is the one and only path to good fortune, Shreya, for the jiva. Rejecting that, all persons who endeavor to attain a sense of exclusive oneness, Kebala Advaita, attain nothing more than their own hardship. As rice cannot be attained by beating empty husks, so nothing of the highest attainment can be had by the prayasa of the seekers of exclusive oneness. The doctrine of exclusive oneness, Kevala Advaitavad, is not based on truth. It is simply a creation of demons. But Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of the jiva's relationship with Bhagavan, of which praise is heard, is very pure and natural. Within it there is no necessity of prayasa. The knowledge described in the Chatushloki, the 4 seed verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, is knowledge of inconceivable difference and non-difference, achinta beda beda gyan. Such knowledge is naturally lodged in the heart of the jiva. Bhagavan is like a spiritual sun, and the jiva is like a particle within its rays. Without subservience to Bhagavan, the jiva cannot remain in their true nature. Therefore, servitude to Bhagavan is their natural function, swadharma. Cultivation of this natural function is the jiva's nature. This is the jiva's natural dharma and is free from prayasa. Even though in the conditioned state, this natural function, swadharma, is basically dormant and awakened through sadhana, still there is no prayasa in bhakti sadhana like the prayasa of the jnana kanda and karma kanda, the sections of the Vedas which propound jnana and karma. If one takes shelter of the holy name with faith, then within a short time the obstruction of ignorance, avidya, goes away, and the joy of one's natural function re-emerges. If one gives a place to jnana prayasa, however, one undergoes greater hardship. If later by the association of the sadhus, one can give that up, then one can endeavor for bhakti. In Sri Gita, Sri Bhagavan has said, Mayi avesha manoye mam nitya yukta upashyate shraddhaya parayopetas te me juktatama mataha yetva karma yetva kashram anirdesham avyaktam paryupashyate sarvatra gam achintyancha kutastam achalam dhruvam sani ya meyendriya graman sarvatra samabudhaya te prapanuvantimam eva sarva bhuta hite rataha klesho dikataras tesham avyaktas shakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukham devhadbir avapyate. One who worships me with full faith, substantiated by surrender, are the highest yogis, those who restrain all the senses and with equanimity towards everything worship the imperishable, indescribable, unmanifest, all-pervading, inconceivable, unchangeable, immovable, and everlasting Brahma, are jnana prayasis. If they have compassion for all living beings, by virtue of that, and after great hardship, they can attain me in the form of Krishna by the grace of a devotee sadhu. In the approach of the jnana prayasis, there is great hardship and delay. Such is the result of jnana prayasa. And there is never any benefit in karma prayasa either. Dharma svanustiti pungsam vishvakshena katasuja not papadyayid jadiratim shrama eva hikevalam. If a living being's properly performed dharma does not produce attachment to discussion of the Lord, then it is simply labor. Dharma here means one's swadharma, or personal duties, within one's varna and ashram according to the karma kanda. Although someone may practice their swadharma perfectly, if they do not develop attachment to discussion of the Lord, then their practice of swadharma was simply prayasa, that is, mere exertion. Therefore, as jnana prayasa is obstructive to bhakti, so too is karma prayasa. The conclusion is that karma and jnana prayasa are completely unhelpful. When a devotee, however, with the intention of maintaining their life in a beautiful way, accepts the duty of a varna and ashram, then because these duties are favorable to bhakti, they are considered to be bhakti. All such duties are no longer called karma. Therein swanishta devotees, those who perform their duties within their varna and ashram, as their worship of Bhagavan, subordinate their duties and the results of their duties to bhakti. Parinishtita devotees, those who engage mainly in the direct bhakti sadhana, perform their varna and ashram duties, which are not in opposition to bhakti, only to educate people in general. Nirapeka devotees, those who engage exclusively in bhakti sadhana and neglect their varna and ashram entirely, give up concern for people in general, and simply accept activities that are favorable to bhakti. Jnana prayasa and prayasa within it for the liberation of merging into Brahma or Prakriti, Sayuja Mukti or Nirvana Mukti are extremely antithetical to bhakti. The prayasa of Ashtanga Yoga, if it is focused on mystic powers, vibhutis, or oneness, kaivalya, is also extremely antithetical. Because the prescriptions for bhakti sadhakas and knowledge of the relationship of inconceivable difference and non-difference, achintya beda beda sambandha gyan, are most natural for the jiva. They have become known as prayasa shunya, free from any prayasa. Such activities and knowledge are honored, however, as means only. If they are accepted as goals, they become harmful. I will demonstrate this in the discussion of Niyamagraha. This toil of visiting holy places is also prayasa that is antithetical to bhakti. Still, if a trip is made to the sites of Krishna's pastimes out of desire for association with sadhus and cultivation of love for Krishna, this is indeed bhakti and not a futile prayasa. The rites and practices of bhakti are not futile prayasa. They are all honored as processes for the attainment of bhakti. The prayasa of service to the Vaishnavas is not prayasa, because longing for the association of one's own kind is the destroyer of the fault of desiring to associate with non-devotees, jnana sangha. That the prayasa of deity worship as an expression of the heart is a natural function. The prayasa of sankirtan or other forms of chanting is simply opening the heart and uttering the Lord's holy name. Therefore, it is a completely natural thing. There is no need for the prayasa of renunciation or vairagya, because with the emergence of bhakti, the jiva's non-desirousness of anything other than Krishna arises naturally. Srimad Bhagavatam has said, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jana Jati Ashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahoitakam. When Bhakti Yoga is dedicated to Bhagavan Vasudeva, quickly renunciation, that is renunciation devoid of prayasa, and causeless knowledge, that is knowledge of the eternally existent attitude of servitude to Bhagavan, manifests. Therefore, one who gives up jnana prayasa and karma or vairagya prayasa and engages in the sadhana of Bhagavad Bhakti, then all forms of knowledge, action, yoga and renunciation, which are obstructive to bhakti, no longer come and cause the jiva to fall down. Bhakti paresh anubhavo viraktir anjatra chaisa trika eka kalaha. This is from the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam has thus established with this statement that bhakti sambandha gyan, knowledge of the jiva's relationship with Bhagavan, and detachment from all else simultaneously arise in the heart of one who engages in the cultivation of pure bhakti. When a devotee humbly and sincerely engages in chanting Krishna's name and remembering Krishna, then automatically this natural mentality arises. I am a particle of spirit and servant of Krishna. Krishna is my eternal Lord, and surrender unto Krishna's feet is my eternal nature. This world for me is only an inn, and becoming attached to anything within it will never be eternally satisfying to me. Hereby, a sadhaka soon achieves all success. Jnana prayasa, karma prayasa, yoga prayasa, mukti prayasa, bhoga prayasa, samsara prayasa, and bahir-mukta jnana sangha prayasa. Endeavors for knowledge, acquisition, yoga, liberation, enjoyment, family, or the association of persons who are averse to Bhagavan. All of these are antithetical to a sadhaka who has taken shelter in the holy name. By all such prayasas, one's bhajan is ruined. Furthermore, prayasa for the attainment of pratishtha, prestige, is more necessary to abandon than all other prayasas. Even though it is most necessary to abandon, however, for many it is unavoidable. Still, it must be done away with in all respects through sincere bhakti. Srila Sanatana Goswami therefore has said, Sarva tyage pyahe yaya sarvanartha bhuvaschate kurja pratista vishtaya jatam aparshane baram. It is best to try to remain untouched by the stool of pratishtha, which is the cause of all anarthas and difficult to abandon even after the renunciation of all else. This instruction is extremely serious. Devotees should follow this all-important duty very carefully. A bhakti sadhaka should maintain their life through activities in their natural dealings that are favorable to bhakti, and with sambandha gyan, they should remember and chant Hari's holy name. This method of bhajan, free from prayasa, has again two modes according to the distinction between householders and renunciants. A householder should make their varna and ashram favorable to bhakti, maintain their life, and free from prayasa, engage in bhakti sadhana. They should accumulate and earn in such a way that they can maintain their family without difficulty. Hari bhajan is the one and only aim of life. If they proceed remembering this at all times, they will never fall into illusion. In pleasure and pain, good fortune and misfortune, wakefulness and sleep, everywhere their Hari bhajan will very soon become established. Renunciates should not accumulate anything at all. They should maintain their life with alms each day and engage in bhakti sadhana. They should not be involved in any enterprise. Entering into enterprise is a fault for them. The more they engage in bhajan with humility and sincerity, the more they will understand Krishna by Krishna's grace, as in Sri Brahma's statement in Srimad Bhagavatam, Taktenu kampam shushamikṣamanu bunjana evatma kritam vipakam ridvag vapubir bidadan namaste jiveta jo mukti pade sadaya bhak. O Krishna, you are the abode of liberation, and no one can become an heir to you except those who endure the reactions to their own actions, sustain the hope that your grace will certainly come, and engage with their body, mind, and words in bhakti yoga for you. Nothing is achieved by jnana prayasa, so only by your grace can you be known. Therefore, atapite deva padambuja dvaya prasada lesanu grihita evahi janati tatvam bhagavan mahimno nachanyam eko pi chiram vichinvan. From the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. O Deva, one who receives even a trace of the grace of your lotus feet knows your glory. Others, however, do not even after searching for a long time. If a sincere devotee humbly takes shelter of the holy name, everything to be known about Bhagavan's nature arises by Bhagavan's grace within their heart. This cannot be achieved even by prolonged prayasa, using one's own independent faculty of knowledge. So there we are. Prayasa. So, prayasa means endeavor, means whatever we endeavor for. So the basic purport of this is that everything that's done with the intention of serving Krishna and Krishna's devotees, which is related to Krishna, that is not prayasa. It is not considered to be prayasa. And the two types of prayasa mentioned here, specifically jnana prayasa, karma prayasa. So that means cultivation of knowledge and the cultivation of karma or activity. So all activity that is not for the service of Bhagavan Sri Krishna and his devotees, and all knowledge which doesn't pertain to the service of Lord Krishna and his devotees, both are considered as prayasa, or useless endeavor. Useless endeavor, because whatever their fruits may be, they are only temporary, they are only fleeting, and they are always reactionary. Both jnana and karma are reactionary if they are not connected with the lotus feet of Krishna. So if one follows varnashram perfectly, but does not engage that the duties of their varna and their ashram for the service of Krishna, they're simply wasting their time. Of course, we don't live in the age of varnashram any longer. But we can understand that whatever our duty in this material world may be, if it is morally acceptable, that means it is not acceptable to earn one's livelihood when it contravenes the moral principles established in Bhakti. You cannot earn your livelihood by working in the pub, or working in the slaughterhouse, or working in McDonald's, or working in the betting shop, or working in the whorehouse, or any of these things, or they cannot be accepted as a proper means for earning one's livelihood. But if one earns one's livelihood, even in the morally acceptable way, if that is not connected with the service of Krishna and his devotees, then it is simply mundane and useless. And if one follows their varna and ashram perfectly, if that's even possible in this age, if it is connected with Krishna, then it is considered to be bhakti. And if it is not connected with Krishna and his service and the service of his devotees, then it is considered to be prayasa. And prayasa in this case means to be useless. Useless endeavor. So really the purport is, whatever we do, we should do with the object of satisfying Krishna. If we do everything with the object of satisfying Krishna, then that will not be prayasa. But Krishna will be satisfied, we can understand in a particular way, if we study the scripture and if we hear from the sadhus. They can explain to us how Krishna is satisfied. And the best way to satisfy Krishna is by satisfying his devotees. Those who are really connected with Krishna through bhakti, and those who are connected with Krishna through love. So through sadhana bhakti and through loving devotion. Real bhakti presupposes love. Uttama bhakti presupposes love. And those who are engaged in the loving service of Krishna, with no other motivation except for his satisfaction, then if we are fortunate enough to come in connection with such a devotee, we should try to offer our life to them. We should try to serve them in all respects. And if we are able to endeavor in such a way, then whatever we do in the material world in our day-to-day endeavor, that will not be prayasa, but that will be bhakti. So it is a very simple in its thought, a very simple thought. How to satisfy Krishna? By satisfying Krishna's devotee. But Krishna's devotee will be satisfied when we follow the prescriptions of the scripture in order to serve him. So this is the meaning of prayasa. Prayasa means any kind of endeavor that is not connected with Krishna. And any prayasa or endeavor that is connected with Krishna, that is good. And anything that is not connected with Krishna, that is bad. So in Sharanagati we understand one of the principles is accepting the favorable and rejecting the unfavorable. So that which is favorable to bhakti, we should utilize that and engage in that for the service of Krishna and for our own purification. And that which is unfavorable for the cultivation of Krishna bhakti, we should try our best to avoid that. And otherwise it will be injurious to our spiritual endeavor and to our spiritual development. So all of these things, especially in the stage of sadhana bhakti, in the stage of sadhana bhakti, it means practice. Sadhana means practice, so that means we have to actually practice these things. They may not come naturally to us, but in the stage of love, of raga bhakti, when that develops in the heart, then everything is inspired by love and duty is no longer a consideration. But we are very far away from that in general. So we are to follow dutifully and according to the rules and regulations of the scripture and the order of the Vaishnava. Then we can understand that we are safe in our endeavor to serve Krishna. This is the underlying meaning of this explanation of prayasa. So here we'll end our talk for today, and we can continue again next week, all being well, God willing. Until then, I offer my obeisances to all the Vaishnava who are watching this either now or recorded. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhavyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Offer my obeisances to my Gurudev Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj, my Diksha Guru Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj, my Param Guru Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the Rupa Guru Bhargya, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur, 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, and the current Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Acharya Brinda, all the Vaishnavas that we may encounter today, we may have encountered in the past, and we may encounter in the future. We offer our obeisances to them, and we try to remember the lotus feet of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who has brought this science of Bhakti Yoga into the world and made it very easily accessible to all. It is the Juga Dharma Nama Sankirtan. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Vaishnava Brinda ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, the Śrī Upadeśāmṛta of Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Jai Saparika Shri Guru Gauranga Radha Sham Sundar Giridhari Jiva ki jai. They are our worshipable deity here in East London. We can give quickly some darshan of them. If I can turn this around. They are here, hearing our talk. We hope they will accept our offering, and we hope you can all join with us again next week. Thank you very much. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Ki Jai.